Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted guidance from the other side for powerful transformation, then do we have the Energy Speak show for you. Today I'll be talking with Lee Harris, speaker, musician, rock star, intuitive medium, and the author of a beautiful book on changing your life, Energy Speaks. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about messages from Spirit on living, loving, and awakening. That, plus we'll talk about the Glastonbury Music Festivals, Chuck and Lency Spezzano, Nina and Dowsing, Zachary, Zafariah, and Ziadora, the No Options Club, and what in the world a built-in, got-your-back Spartan warrior has to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Lee. Gotcha. Are you ready to shine?
I am with you, Michael. Thank you.
Woohoo! And thank you so much for being here, Lee. Before we dive right into things, would you mind taking us back to the glorious days before age 10?
Oh, the glorious days before age 10. What aspect of those days?
What were the challenges that you were running into? You had things around food, around your weight, around perhaps your voice as well.
Yeah. So as a kid, my kind of high point was creative expression. And I was really expressed creatively and exhibited a lot of kind of ability in that area. And in life, I was really struggling, and I developed addictive eating quite young. I was taken to Weight Watchers age 10, and I think I remember losing something like 15 pounds at age 10 in Weight Watchers over a series of, I don't remember whether it was months or a year now. But that ran through my whole teenage years. I yo-yoed with weight and dieting, and was taken to a diet clinic, and I think by the time I was my biggest, I was 15 and a half. I was 60 pounds overweight because I lost 60 pounds between 15 and a half and 18.
While
and
growing,
course,
which was even cooler.
I was smaller, yeah. So I was a smaller frame, I was a smaller height. But what I would do is I would compulsively eat. So I would privately eat like 5 Snickers bars in 15 minutes once a day, and that would be like my thing. It was kind of the place I was trying to soothe myself. And then, of course, 30 minutes later, I don't know if you really understand that as a kid, you're not going to feel good. But I think it was my way of dealing with my sensitivity and the lack of emotional expression that I felt allowed to have as a person, or that I felt was missing in the world. Because, you know, I have a great family. They're loving. But of course, it doesn't really matter what the circumstance of your family is if you're dealing with something internally that you're troubled by. And in my case, it was sexuality was the dominant thing. I was like, oh God, I'm not heterosexual. This is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But actually, more than that, I now look back and realize sensitivity and intuition were things I didn't really understand were running through my system. So I turned to self-destruction in order to try and cope.
Thank you for sharing. You talk about one end of the TV spectrum, the East Enders sending you off in the wrong direction, so to speak. But then actually Oprah being the antidote in a sense.
Yes. So I remember being with family members when the first gay kiss on British television happened on a soap called EastEnders. And I believe that was about 1984, 1985, maybe it was later. Yeah. But I know I was young, and I remember a couple of the family members I was watching it with going, "Oh," when they watched it. And I think there were two things in that moment. I do think it's odd to see two men kissing when you aren't used to seeing it, which none of us really were at that point, not on television. And I think your reaction as a kid when you first see people kissing or, being intimate in any way, there's that kids have. But to hear the adults in my life having that reaction, I was like, oh God, this is not going to go well. There was a subliminal message that what I was feeling I was was wrong and was going to be a problem in the world. And then Oprah was the antidote. When I was 16 years old, or a little under actually, I was revising for my GCSEs, which was the 16-year-old exams in England. And the Oprah Winfrey Show came to England. And this was way before she did Super Soul Sunday or any of the spiritual self-help books. It was back in the early days when she would have people on the show talking about their feelings, their problems. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, people are like, I was glued to the screen. It would be like my revision reward. I would revise a certain amount of time. Then I'd go and watch the Oprah show and I would watch people talk about their feelings. And that for me was like the door opening. It was like, oh, thank God, people are actually talking about how they're feeling. And coincidentally, I think Oprah had been very overweight and there was some similarity there. But that was the time I moved to a very creative, expressive, all-gender college from an all-boys secondary school, which was where things had really got tight for me. And I started to lose weight and everything opened up.
Thank you. Was it a lot of and I'm drawing some parallels to my lives on many areas. I went to a all boys Catholic high school as a good Jewish boy, so that was quite the challenge. I turned to drama myself as a creative expression. Was drama really the piece that got the energy flowing so that you weren't in a sense stuck, or was it the books you were reading? What got things going for you?
You know, theatre was my saving grace. So I loved to sing as a kid and I loved theatre. And what I now look back on all of my time with acting as is the beginning of shamanism and the beginning of being an empath. Two aspects to that. I was never very good at being myself on stage. I think I really struggled with self-identity, but I was really good at becoming someone else and turning into another character in a story. And that was the shamanism aspect, the shape-shifting ability. And then the other side, the empathy, was being able to move with an audience because, you know, I'd do a run of 60 shows and every audience was different. And I would have some actors in the cast were going, oh, it's a really bad audience tonight. I can't be bothered. And I'd be thinking, it's not a bad audience. They're just quieter. It's different. So we have to modulate our volume. And I was always very aware of that dance of the meeting point with the audience. So I went to drama school to kind of complete my work with acting. It felt like I had to. But not long after drama school, I heard the voice of my guides. I'd become consumed with writing music, which I see as very connected to my channeling. I started hearing and writing music at age 21 for the first time, and then about a year later met my guides. So it held me, but I now look back and see that it was shamanistic and empathic was my real joy of acting. Apart from, I just loved the community. You know, I loved being backstage with the cast, the community aspect of that.
Beautiful. I'm thinking of a few ceremonies that I've had with shamans, you know, guiding you on this journey, and the music that they're channeling through, helping guide you along. And so when you said that about music, I'm very curious. What is the music that's flown through you?
Well, my savior in music when I was a kid was emotional music, like music that would help me feel. And so the music that I started to write was very much emulating some of the singer-songwriters that were, you know, kind of my saviors at the time. So I think of people like Tori Amos, who could combine genius music and a beautiful voice with really honest lyrics. It's like if the Oprah Winfrey Show was a song, that was what Tori Amos was doing. So I kind of did a lot of that in the early years. And in recent years, I've been bringing the music into my work more. It kind of happened very organically. So we will write song lyrics so I work with Davor Bozic mostly, who's this wonderful Slovenian musician and dear friend. And we will often write songs in the workshops live. So we'll be doing a channeled session in the evening with sound healing and music. We'll have a break at 5 p.m. for 2 hours before we do that. And we'll write a song there and then based on what went on in the room to wrap it into the channel that night so that it's very connected to the people. And we do the same thing in my monthly members club, I release an MP3 every month, and most months there is a brand new created song to fit the message of the channel, and that goes into the work based on what I'm feeling in the collective or what I'm feeling in our group who are going to receive the recording.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's segue from there. I want to go to just before the subway ride that changed your life. The
Yes.
importance of such a powerful line, God use me.
Mm-hmm. So I was lucky enough to discover all of these workshops called Psychology of Vision in the UK. And I think I was 23 when I went to my first one. I was 23 or 24. So I had already begun channeling at that point, but it was very private. And it wasn't anything I ever thought I would do publicly or for a living, or it didn't even know that could become like a thing.
And that started first with dowsing, I believe.
It did. The dowsing led into it. But what happened at this workshop with Chuck? So Chuck Spezzano, a psychologist, but a deep intuitive, he and his wife Lency would run these workshops, and they had trainers who would run these workshops too, all around the world. And at one that he did in London, it was a huge event. He asked all of us, he said, what if your plan for your life wasn't as good as it could be? What if you surrendered to God and you said, God, use me? Imagine how your life would change. All of you who are willing to say, God, use me, and surrender your plan to God, come up here to the front. And there's probably, 300, 400 people in this room.
Yeah.
And about 150 of them all literally went, yeah, kind of went running up to the front and, really thrilled because either they've done these workshops before or they just know the principle. Then there were about another 100 people who were like, well, I'm not surrendering. No, I've got my plans. And I was in the group that was somewhere in between. Like, there was the part of me that wanted to look as joy-filled as those people, and I fully trusted Chuck and the process of the work. But there was another part of me that was going, no, I'm supposed to be a singer-songwriter. I know I've walked away from acting. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around the world and use my voice to give back to the music that has saved my life, music that might help other people feel, celebrate, expand. But I did walk forward because at that point I was all about just feel the fear, do it anyway, go for things that move you out of your comfort zone. That was what I was doing in my life a lot. And lo and behold, unbeknownst to me for many, many years, it was 4 months after that day that I did my very first channeled reading for a member of the public. All very unexpectedly, and that just started what has been a 15-year journey working in the transformation field.
So thank you. So how did, you said, God use me, and you find yourself on a subway car, kicking back, ruminating, and probably picking on yourself in the process.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I was on my way to my job in fundraising, and I was absolutely thrilled to have a job in fundraising because bear in mind, I was a student for 3 years, then I was in and out of acting jobs for 1.5 years. So suddenly a steady job and a steady income. I had a steady boyfriend. I really wanted steady. And I was so into all the self-development stuff, I couldn't have cared less about turning my back on acting. So I was on my way to this job, and I was definitely processing something that had happened the night before between the two of us, and I was convinced it wasn't my fault. And I literally heard this voice from here, which is where I still hear them positionally, the left side of my head and just above. Well, that's an interesting idea, but you've got that wrong. I was like, what's all that? Because I'd never heard this before. Like, I was used to thoughts in my brain, thoughts in my head, but this was completely different. And I literally just kind of just asked the voice something back and then got an immediate answer. And at first I was like, am I schizophrenic? Is this the point where they put you in the asylum? But what I started to do was just ask questions. And I had seen a channeler about a year before, but I'd been a little skeptical. Not of the wisdom and the intuition that came through him, but I remember coming away and going, well, why does he close his eyes and have to adjust his voice like that? And of course, now I'm the one with egg on my face because I understand that when you channel, even if your voice changes in a subtle way, it does change because you're bringing something else through that isn't exactly you, even if it's coming through you, so it's filtered through you, but still. So yeah, I just started experimenting by asking questions, writing them down, and that was the key for me. It's why I really recommend that people who channel or speak to their higher self write it down, because then if you start tracking it back a week or two later, you start to see these patterns and you start to see things within it that are a very truthful thread. And it's a way of really seeing, is this working for me? So I'm a big believer in getting everyone to channel. I get people to do it at my workshops, and people who are like, oh, I can't channel. I'm like, oh, yes, you can. Here's the pen, here's the paper, here we go. So yeah, I think it's really important for whether it's your guides or your connection to God or a higher power or whoever or whatever you think or experience it as being, we all have connection to this greater wisdom beyond our human ego, our human identity. And for me, it was and continues to be life-changing. When I get contracted, I speak to them and I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Oh, and my whole body opens up, my whole mind opens up, and I have a very different perspective on things.
Thank you. And I love that you're saying that we can all do it. You know, I was talking off air, we teach automatic writing. And to me, the most important tool in the world is how do we get out of the monkey mind and into the voice or voices on the inside. You know, we can call it up and down, 3D, 4D, 5D. But like you're saying, when you plug in on that, I can only speak for myself. Until I started plugging in, I was working my tail off, but in the direction I wanted to go in, which meant I was
Yes.
banging my head into the wall.
Oh, that was so what was happening to me. I was working really hard at trying to make music happen, and it was hard and it wasn't really working. And then over on the left, I said, God, use me. And a thing that I didn't even think could be work for me blew up, like to the point that I had to leave my job and make it full time after about a year and a half, 2 years.
So let's dive from there. I want to dive into the book. Before we do that, you must have asked, who are you? Who am I hearing right now?
Yes.
Or do I
Yes.
need to lock myself up?
Yeah. Yeah, and I did. And I'm pretty sure I asked that question on the tube, which is the underground. It's what we call it in England.
Mind the gap.
Right, mind the gap, yes. I was like, who are you? What are you? What am I hearing? And they were like, we are your guides, and we have been with you ever since you were a child. You just haven't always been able to hear us, and now you can. And if I tracked it back, all of the things I was doing that were opening me intuitively, dowsing, playing with tarot cards. I didn't know what any of the cards meant, but I loved tarot cards. I loved going for tarot card readings. So I would like throw cards down for friends and give them intuitive readings, not really knowing what I was doing, but it was kind of permission for my intuition to open. So I now understand there was this perfect storm that landed that day, that they were just there. And they said, we're your guides. And I was like, do you have a name? And they said, well, we don't really have names, but we know humans need names. So you can call me Zachary. I'm the lead spokesperson for the guides. And Zachary was, and to some degree still is, who I hear the most. But it's very, I really hear the collective. And they said we're a collective of 88 entities who then extend further into source. Now, the way I understand that is we all extend into source. So we're all, 88 degrees of separation from another human being, another energy being. So it makes sense to me that they refer to themselves as a consciousness library. They say some of us have incarnated on the planet before, some of us haven't. So they have a wide basis of information. But what I always say is you must use channeling as part of a balanced diet. Guides are wonderful and they give us a higher perspective, but we're also on the ground going through it every day and knowing what our capacity is, knowing when we might need to soothe and calm down. So I'm a big advocate of whenever I meet people who are like, well, the guide said I should do this, but I don't know how I'm going to do it because I haven't got any money. And I'm like, well, then don't do it. I'm like, let's hold that as a highest possibility for you. And let's see what that moves in you. And if it's meant to be, you will be able to move into it without stress. So I think one of the disservices that the stigma around channeling and us contacting our own intuition has given us, and that stigma comes from organized religion sometimes from society's beliefs. We have to remember that witches were only being burned 400 or so years ago, so that panic is still in the collective about, oh God, if I'm intuitive. Because of that separation from our intuition, I think when people do connect with it, either through themselves or another person, they can get into a dance of giving their power away to it and not recognizing it's collaborative. It's like if your friend told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? Maybe you'd consider it because they're your friend, but would you do it? And you should play channeling the same way.
Thank you so much. And you just made a connection in my childhood, which I grew up in Danvers, Massachusetts, which 400 years ago, Salem was a part of Danvers.
Wow.
The first witches were buried, who were drowned, were buried less than half a mile from my house. And I used to actually do etchings of the cemetery. I never made this connection until now.
I was just going to say, I can't tell you how many times I've been in workshop rooms and brought this witches thing up. And so many people in the room go, and I know for me, one of the challenge of being a public channeler for me, because it was not convenient. It's much easier to say you're a singer-songwriter or you're an actor or director in theater. It's more socially acceptable. I didn't want, after being the fat kid and then having to come out as gay, the last thing I wanted to do was add channeling to the list. I was like, oh God, I was like, just when you think you've got over it. But it was good for me too, because it's taught me to stand for it without trying. I was definitely trying to edit it out at certain times in my life because I felt uncomfortable. But what I was going to say was that witch thread and that witch fear still exists, and I've likened it to the very aggressive, judgmental, and attacking comments that you sometimes see on social media. And you'll see them on people's books that are spiritual. They are the modern day witch hunters. So they're no longer drowning you or setting you on fire, but they have the same bile and energy of death toward you because you say you're spiritual, you're intuitive, and you see it wrapped up in comments like, just another fraud, just another con artist, just trying to make a load of money. And they go for the jugular. It's not constructive criticism where someone says, oh, this self-help book wasn't quite as helpful as the other one. It's like, no, they've got it in for you. And to me, I'm like, oh, there's a reincarnated witch hunter energy. And it took me time to be able to not be affected by that at the beginning because I couldn't believe that existed. But it does.
You just hit like 3 synchronicities in a row. I've got to get through them quickly because we got to stay on track here. But first off, I was just reading an article about somebody in our field yesterday who's written a book on magic, M-I-G-I-C-K or M-I-J.
I saw that and I love that title.
This gentleman was in jail for 18 years as one of 3 people who were supposedly committed murder, killed 3 kids, and he was on death row for 18 years for a crime he did not do because there was a modern day witch hunt. I was reading this article last night as I was going to dive into your book. Secondly, when my second book came out, Barefoot Running, which gets into spun, balanced, and earth, which I wanted to talk about, one of the most scathing reviews which stuck was, well, this guy is talking about an energy of the earth. Clearly, he is a sham. He is a fraud. How can we believe anything? A newspaper article the next year on me doing my connecting to the earth when I had an NDE and almost died and was luckily rescued from this place was, with the work that he's giving into the world, it's a shame he didn't die.
Wow. Yeah.
You're
It exists, and it's tough, and I think that's why a lot of people are hesitant to do this work online. I've had 15 years to get used to this, but even still, I was supposed to write another book. I was in 2015 writing a book that was in my own voice, and I'd self-published 2 volumes of Energy Speaks that each had about 4 chapters in those self-published volumes that now made it into this new book, which has 15 or 16 chapters. So this is like the ultimate edition, and we re-edited the whole thing because I wanted it to be very user-friendly. So this is a new book, but I was never intending to put this out, but I just kept getting the nudge. But even for me, going out with this it's moving some stuff. I'm like, oh wow, now I'm really, and I have a very good friend who's an author, and he just said, well, putting a book out is always a bit challenging. He said, and hey, I didn't put a channeled book out. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, no. So it's you do. There is some interface with that kind of energy, but what I always teach people who want to do public work and they're hesitant about it is I said, pick your 3 favorite authors or 3 favorite YouTubers and go and find the negative comments, because what really helped me was seeing horrible comments towards Eckhart Tolle. I'm like, how can anybody there's nothing about Eckhart that isn't just kind, humble, loving. And if you go to Amazon and pick his 1-star reviews, you will see hatred and negativity toward Eckhart. And that's when you go, oh, this is that person's bile. They're just looking for people to do that. And if you really sit and think about the state you would have to be in to sit and write something like that on Amazon.
You've got to send them love. You've got to send them love. They're really hurting.
See that it's nothing to do with you, and focus on the 99 people that have said thank you so much. And I know it's challenging because it was challenging for me at first, but it's a muscle. You learn it, and you have to understand it in order to be able to not take it personally.
So thank you again on this. Do you ride a bicycle?
I do.
I was reading Bicycling magazine in the office where Jessica found out we had a miscarriage a couple weeks ago, and I'm reading in their Bicycling magazine. I don't usually go to it anymore. It's buy this, buy that, buy the other thing, but I love to ride a bike. And there in the middle of this is an article about a woman whose fiance was a big Strava cyclist. He keeps setting all the local times for different events, or like fastest on this trail, fastest on that trail, and he had died out on the trail. And so it's an article about these miracles that came into her life. And here in the middle of Bicycling magazine, cutting to the chase, she meets with a medium who channels her fiance who had passed on it goes in a mainstream publication, Rodale Press. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, the world is shifting for a positive. The time for your book, Energy Speaks, is now. It really is now, and we're open, and that 1% is even fractional compared to how it used to be. People are ready for what you have to share and what your guides have to share.
Thank you. And it's funny because this book, some of the channels in this book were 10 years ago, even though they have never been put into this literature form and edited this way. But still, I was struck by that. I was like, wow, things that I was doing 10 years ago when it was more fringy. I think that's why I say channeling is part of a balanced diet. I remember when yoga first came to Britain in what felt like the 80s, when it started to become a bit more mainstream, and everyone was like, oh, yoga, what's yoga? And same with vegetarianism. And I feel like everything in the more spiritual or self-development realm has its place and has a moment where it starts to normalize. And I really credit Esther Hicks with doing an amazing job. To me, she's a master channeler, and I think that she's done an amazing job of really helping channeling be seen as the useful tool that it should be.
Beautiful. So let's dive into some of the book. We'll move through it kind of quickly. Everybody, you're just going to have to go out and get the book. Chapter 1, you are a light worker. Are we all light workers? Or at least if we're drawn to listen to this, are we a light worker?
Yes. And my philosophy about light workers is, I had to go and have some blood taken for the doctor several months ago. And I can have reactions in medical things. It just depends on the day. But it's everything from like leaving my body through to, so I have to concentrate sometimes and breathe. And I had one of those episodes, and the lady who took my blood, she was just heavenly. And so to me, the light worker is the person you don't know, but in a moment you need them, will just help you or be nurturing or kind or loving. They will bring some love, some light, some help your way. They may not think of themselves as light workers. They may not identify with that word. They may not follow spirituality, but it's just in their being to be giving and kind when and where they can. Those who think of themselves as light workers, they are here to help raise the vibration of the planet. And they actively do that work. They put things into the world that help lift a community, help lift a certain group, or are designed to elevate the way that a certain group thinks, feels, or experiences life. So it might be that they set up a children's group in their area for troubled teens, or they're in an area where they can see that the teens don't have anything to do, so they open up a center to help with that. But the one thing that I think can sometimes get tricky for people in their mind around the light workers, there's two distortions that I see happen a lot. This doesn't happen as much, but occasionally you meet the inflated light worker where they're like, well, I'm a light worker, and and they go into some kind of odd superiority, which of course is always underpinned by inferiority, but that's kind of missing the point. But then equally, people who go, well, I think I'm a light worker, but I've still got these flaws and I've still got these things I'm working on. And I'm always like, yeah, so have I. I'm human. And if you are human and incarnate in the body, there will be challenges, there will be growth opportunities, and it's a journey of growth. But that doesn't mean that you're not capable of perhaps 70% of the time focusing on being a light worker, and 30% of the time you're experiencing the light and the shadow of the earth through your own life and with the people around you. So I think some people get confused because they think that they have to be some kind of saint to be a light worker, and I think that's a very difficult frequency to maintain 100% of the time on a planet like this that has so many variations between love and suffering.
And maybe for most of us, being able to ride that roller coaster without judgment may actually help us to be able to translate or share with others as well.
Absolutely. And that has been, I don't know about you, but that has been probably my greatest challenge. I would say in my 20s, I was definitely of that mindset of, oh, well, what's going on? Because I had this breakthrough and now I'm regressed. And I've learned that actually the real act of self-love for me personally, and I think for a lot of other people, is in the moments when I am contracted, or in the moments when I am depleted or struggling. How kind can I be to myself about the fact I'm in that state? And sometimes I do a great job with that, and other times it's not so great. But if I'm aware, I'm like, oh, you're being a bit hard on yourself. You're just tired. It's okay. You can stop. You can rest. And for me, certainly that is not something I was ever trained into. So that's something I have to work on with and for myself as an adult, which the Z's have helped immeasurably with.
Yeah, and they've talked, and we'll get to self-love here in a minute, real briefly. So after NDE number 1, I've had this amazing experience. I see the world differently. I'm transformed. But wait a second, I'm still the same person with the same wiring, the same challenges, and I called it integration as a because I would go, well, you're supposed to know better. And then I would have judgment on top of judgment on top of, and it was just, now I just know, I'm going to be my messy, human, whatever. I'm so far from perfect. That's part of the journey.
Oh, I love that you bring this up, because one of the things that has come through me, I do these monthly free videos called energy updates. And in it, I put intuitive information about what's going on the planet into hopefully fairly understandable language and concepts. And each month the themes are different. And the one thing that came up a lot in the last few years is this idea of light worker descension. So since about 2012, 2013, people who felt like they were ascending, awakening before, and having these powerful opening experiences, it has really been, okay, now you get in your body. Now you're in the life you wanted to manifest. Now you're in your neighborhood more than you've ever been before. And that's where the learning is now. And that's not true for every individual, because of course there will be some people right now popping open and having their awakening. But for the group who feel like they had their major awakenings pre-2012 or had a series of them pre-2012, post-2012, it's been very much about rubber meets the road, everyday life. Now you get to heal the human you at an all new level by bringing what you've experienced up here down into the body, the emotions, the psychology. And I know that's true for me.
And that to me is the work, because you talk about a balanced diet. So we keep coming back to this balanced diet idea. When I see people who are just plugged in up above, I consider them spun, and they have a hard time getting things done on the planetary realm because they're just plugged in. But I believe we came incarnate in a physicality to learn about how to work within this dense, heavy physicality.
Absolutely. And I notice it. I've met lots of people over the last year who've done ayahuasca, and there's a real difference to me between how integrated they are with their journeys. There are some people who they'll talk to you about ayahuasca and they'll do this. They go, "Oh my God, it's amazing." And they start to float. They go back into the float state. And then there are other people who will go, "Oh yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it really helped me sort out my addiction. I've done 7 journeys now, and I'm not judging the first people, but there's a difference with the first people, and I only use ayahuasca as an example. You can use the example of people who channel, who are having breakthroughs at workshops, who are in love. You know, it's like, oh, I'm so in love with this person I met 3 months ago, and I'm slightly floating, and of course, if I'm still with them in a year, it's all going to integrate. So there's no judgment on the states, but there is a difference. They're different stages of the journey and of integration.
And when I spoke to you earlier about the music, I was actually referencing shamans guiding me with the music through ayahuasca journeys that I've been on. And when I talk to people about ayahuasca, I said, yes, it's profound when you're ready, but I would say that it is about as recreational as driving a car or truck over your foot and parking it there.
That's great. That's great. I've never done ayahuasca, but I had many very psychedelic experiences with marijuana back in the day. And for me, marijuana was kind of like this door opening thing until it wasn't. And it kicked me out. And it was like, no, no more. That's you had all the good experiences we're going to show you with this. So yeah, I can that's kind of made me hesitant about ayahuasca, because I feel like I had some major shamanic experiences with marijuana.
It's not necessary. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
You're already cracked wide open. My wife was on one of the journeys with me, and I saw her as this elder, this auntie from the Amazon. And she said out loud, how many times are you going to need to do this before you get it?
Yeah.
In other words, once you get it,
Yeah.
there are other ways of tapping in. This is not picking on it at all. It's profound. It's life-changing. But if you've already got that connection, you may not need it, or you may do a touch and go. But now, how do we bring you back into, again, this physicality so that you can connect, like you're saying at the beginning, so you can channel, whether it's written, whether you're hearing it, on a regular basis and live in this space?
Absolutely. And I will say that the one thing I'm really loving about the popularity of ayahuasca right now is it goes back to what I said 10 minutes ago. It's like all of these things have their place.
Yes.
And for some people, they will be the opener. And the fact that they're just becoming a bit more visibly known and available to us, and you know, this year it's ayahuasca, next year it's something else. It's like these things are having their time to rise, because I feel like we're multidimensional people. We need multidimensional ways in, and these things just becoming a bit more normal in society is really important, because they've been hidden.
So what are the guides telling you about the shift in consciousness going on? That seems to be what we're talking about today, is everything shifting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I just did an annual message for 2019, which is available for free on YouTube. It's about an hour long, and my YouTube channel is Lee Harris Energy, and I think the video is 2019 Year of Beginnings. And what they said that struck me very strongly was they said that you've just completed a 7-year cycle from 2012. And they said 2012 to 2019 was one thing, and now 2019 to 2026 begins a whole new cycle. And they said, hold on to your hats, because many of you thought that certain things were going to change after 2012, and you felt disappointed that they didn't. They said this next 7 years is going to be crucial. It's crucial in terms of we will see changes in the real world, not just in our life, that will really set up our coming decades. And, they talked about things being intense and challenging in many ways. So therefore, there's no time to, shall we say, only hide. You've got to find what serves and suits you. But they also said that there's a lot of fear mongering about how things are going on the planet, and that fear technology is designed to trap you into seeing a very bleak reality for the planet for people who might want to manifest that, which is a very small number but a powerful number. So it was interesting. And so what I feel about the next 7 years is, because more people are waking up, we're going to see more solutions and actions, but I feel also we're going to see different kinds of revolution, and we're already seeing them. I think, things that are being suggested for society, factions of society are kicking back against, whether it's, what we're seeing going on with women's reproductive rights in America, or things going on all around the world. People aren't going to be able to align with dark or shadowy or controlling agendas. But equally, the one thing that the Z's have said is that sometimes when people talk about shadow agendas on the planet, they give too much power to the people behind those shadow agendas, because they too are being disrupted by the level of consciousness change that is happening, not just on the earth, but to the earth. They say this is a universal shift, and it's happening across the whole universe, and the earth is a focal point for this shift. So they say it makes for very intense times for us in terms of how we're living, but also that we have to focus on and maintain our connection to gratitude, light, love, magic down here, as much as we might want to be an activist for something. It's really important to cover both strands and to not just get lost in fear or anxiety. So I think the gift of these times is it helps you burn some of that fear and anxiety and safety on a human level off, which of course, you having had the NDE, or any of us who've had awakening experiences, we know that this plane is one level of the illusion. Mm-hmm. But it feels real when you're in it, and it should. Heck, that's what being incarnate is. So it's an interesting one. For me personally, what I feel kind of excited about the next decade as much as I feel any trepidation, because I feel like this, if you like, storm period that we are in has been brewing for so long that at least now there's movement happening, and things are beginning to come apart at the seams in a way that new birth can crack open. So it's a challenging time for sure, because we're also dealing with overstimulation of information and availability of things that we couldn't see. But it's certainly very electrical and alive.
I can't help but going to the words electrical and alive. We've gone all over the place today, Lee. I'm going to have you back. I'm loving this.
Sorry, I tend to do that. I can't. It's a rabbit hole once you start.
Last week we had on Mo Gaudat, who was the chief business officer of Google through last year, of Google X, artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, stuff like that. He's talking about the Singularity Point coming in within the next 10 years, if not less, when basically robots are sentient beings with a greater intelligence than us, and them being 1 billion times smarter than us within 30 years. And people can go to a place of, oh no, that's it. They're going to blah, blah, blah. But what I heard you say, or what I heard the Z's saying, is all of Earth is shifting. All of consciousness is shifting. In which case, and this is my belief, that yes, we have artificial intelligence, a new life form that we, in a sense, created that's here, that will help force us in a positive way to shift. But it's all an evolution. It's all a growth. It's all, in a sense, a remembrance or stepping into our power.
It's an interesting topic, because it's a very heated topic, the AI topic. And I hear arguments for both sides. All I will say to you about it, just from a very intuitive standpoint, is it's not as new as we think. Meaning, there is something about AI that we will remember. meaning as souls, there is something in that technology and that experience that is actually quite ancient rather than new.
Yes.
And that's the piece that connects to the universe. And I've always had a feeling that if I lived a long life, well, I'll give you and your audience this example. Think about if you know someone in their 80s, think about how different the world is for them. My father's 83, my mum's late 70s. How different the world is for them as to what they described their childhood was like. And I mean, it's shocking. Now times that by 3 for those of us who are alive in this period, in terms of how extraordinarily different the world will look if now I'm 42, so if I live to 84, I'm kind of not going to recognize what's gone on in some ways, but I also feel intuitively prepared for that because they've been talking to me about this for 15 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my feeling on it. I'm curious to see how it all plays out, but the one thing they always say is there is no prediction that any of us can have heard that can go the way we think it can. For example, when I saw the movie Thrive in 2011,
Yep.
I was so grateful that they had updated Zeitgeist, which was terrifying in many ways and it had a darkness to it, even though the information was useful. And the same with the Thrive movie. One thing the Z's always say, the thing I loved about Thrive was that it was solution based and it was cohesive, and had light in it too. But definitely it was triggering as well. And one thing the Z's say is they go, the great thing about these kinds of realities being put on the table for us to explore is they can't actually play out the way that we might be asked to fear that they can. And that those who might want those agendas to work would feed on our fear. So there is something to that has kind of kept me on an even keel. And I remember there were all of these predictions around 2011, 2012. People would get all their knickers in a twist about date predictions. Oh, and the banks are going to crash on this day. And, I'd have intuitive friends going, we should pull out. And I'd be like, oh, and I'd just start to like feel a bit panicked just because they were all panicked. And I would watch one of those after another just not happen. So I feel that taking a long view of this is really important if you get triggered or focused on an immediate outcome, because any of us can die at any minute. And that's important to remember too, to kind of just put it all in perspective. So that's kind of my truth around all of these things. And that's what I lean into if ever I feel like things are getting a bit hot under the collar.
Thank you. What would you say are the top 3 things the Z's would want to teach us about stepping into our power?
That there is far more space for any of us than we realize. Meaning, I'll give you a funny example. If right now I was sat here and I decided, I don't want to talk to Michael anymore, I don't want to talk to these people, I could just hang up and walk off. Mm-hmm. Now, our social conditioning goes, you can't do that. You've agreed to be an interview guest and there's people maybe watching this. But the Z's would argue that it's that way of thinking, not necessarily to be harmful or destructive to other people, but to remember that we are far freer than we realize we are. Yes. And that we have to know that those patterns are movable in order to make any change in our life. So we have to know that we can say something we wouldn't normally say. We have to know that no one's going to die if we change a plan with them or we change our mind. So that would be the first thing. They would say that things are far more malleable than we allow them to be because we get caught in our patterns. Number 2, that we all need to maintain a connection to our soul light and our universal light. That while it's really important to be invested in the human game, as they would call it, they would say you'll have a far richer experience and be able to bring more consciousness to the planet, which is the job of most of us who feel wired that way. If you keep a connection to your soul light. And then the other thing, and this, it's interesting, there's probably more than 3, but what comes to mind is they talk about play and fun being such important energies. And I know for me that play and fun gets organized. Like, it's like, oh, now I go and play. And now I do this work. And I've tried to bring more freedom and more play into my work, but I also recognize I still have a learning curve around that one. It's like, yeah, there are responsibilities and there's a schedule and there's things that people are waiting for. But within all of that, when I get too contracted around that, I have to know, okay, that's got to change. And the policy I have in my company and my whole team know this phrase: if we can't make the deadline, we move the deadline. Because all of us coming from corporate or company backgrounds, we'd get stressed if we're like, oh, the energy update isn't going to be ready for April the 1st, and it's like, well, then it's going to be ready on the 3rd. And so we've all had to slightly adopt that mindset of, if somebody is stressed, then their stress has to be given space, rather than they have to heap more stress on themselves to make this thing happen that apparently is so crucial for the world. So yeah, those are the three things that come to me.
Love it. This is in a sense breaking protocol, but we can all hear Michael's thinking as I'm going along, which is, I'm always trying to stay present. I'm never trying to go, where do I need to go or anything like that. But I heard this blip in me go, when you said play, I said, I get to go run a mountain and ski down it as soon as I'm done with this. But wait, we started, quote, a little bit late. Am I going to have time to do that and prepare for my Ask Michael Anything YouTube live event coming next? And then my next thought was, what? You think you're alone? You think that you're just doing this on your own? Just sit yourself in the chair, relax into everything. And I'm saying this for all of us, and it will all work itself out.
It is so true. And that there is a timing that is beyond. It's kind of like the God used me. Even last night, Michael, because the book comes out today, I've had a busy couple of weeks, and I had a lot going on yesterday, and I thought I would film my new energy update last night. And I had to crank to kind of get to the point that I could just make it in time for sunset before the light went. And I had to get ready, and I had to loads of things. And I got to the top of the hill, I set the tripod up, and I didn't have the shoe on the camera that connects to the tripod. And because it's a drive, I was like, oh, and because I have a schedule, I was like, oh God, I'm not going to be able to do it till Wednesday, which means my videographer, my social media person, the team around it that helped me with the transcript, it's going to delay us all. And of course, it was like, oh, okay, well, you're not in charge, clearly. Otherwise, that camera shoe that you had gone and found and you thought taken out of the bag, you'd left it on your desk. So it wasn't meant to be. But I had that moment of, pressure. And then it was like, it's not meant to be tonight. So I do try and live by that principle all the time. However, I still run into the roadblocks that allow me to practice that principle.
On that note, how do we meet? Who or what is our inner observer? You call it the angel behind you. How do we tap in or meet them?
Well, there is this exercise in the book. First of all, they explain that we all have this inner observer angel, and the angel behind you is the chapter. And they say, imagine this enormous beast of an angel standing behind you. And they said, this is an enormous beast. And they say it's a loving warrior. So it's not a beast that's going to it's not like a horror movie. But they say, this is your protector. And they say, try and remember that you always have this enormous angel standing right behind you, far bigger than you are, with big wings. And that's your backbone. But that you can also develop a relationship with your inner observer angel that will help you let go of judgment, which, as we all know, is the killer to intimacy with ourself, the moment, or others. So the inner observer angel is developing an aspect in this world of voices or characters that you might have as part of your personality that just is always watching. And if you are kicking yourself going, oh God, I wish we hadn't overrun because now I want to go up the mountain and ski and I don't know if I'm going to have time and I've got to do the YouTube live, because you've created this relationship and this awareness of your inner observer angel works as the parent and goes, it's okay, Michael. It's okay. So you see, the problem is no longer the fact that we're judging ourselves, because we've always got this advocate for us not doing it. And the more you have that relay between you judging yourself or someone else and the inner observer angel that really is standing in peace, the more that starts to fade. Like anything, the more we practice, the more we entrain a new pattern. So that's really why that chapter was so important for the book, because I felt like judgment is kind of the silent killer for all of us, and it's a defense mechanism we've all been taught, or we've all been on the receiving end of. So it's a dis-ease that we're all working out of our system until we are no longer trapped by it.
Woohoo! Thank you, thank you, thank you. Where can people go to find your beautiful book, Energy Speaks, and to find out more?
Well, if you are an Amazon shopper, it's available on Amazon worldwide. But you can also go to energyspeaksbook.com. We created a landing page for the book so that there are all the different links on there. Barnes and Noble stores in the US, and I believe Canada will be carrying it in independent bookstores. And so, yeah, it's available now. But energyspeaksbook.com will take you to the page for the book. And my website is leeharrisenergy.com. And we also have the book there pretty much almost at the top of the homepage.
And I'll have both of those. If you didn't catch energyspeaksbook.com or leeharrisenergy.com, come on over to inspirenationshow.com. I'll get you over to energyspeaksbook.com and leeharrisenergy.com. Two last things. We'll have to do a really brief meditation. I'm looking forward to that. First off, any advice for parents and their kids?
Well, the one thing the Z's talk about with parenting is they say it's the most challenging job in the world. And if you are a parent, you are a light worker. So you are learning all about giving. And of course, kids give back too. You receive, but it's really where you learn about unconditional giving, service, and that's the highest possibility. And it doesn't mean you're a bad parent if one morning you're cranky, you're tired, and you snap at your kid, because the most important thing is you notice it. Oh, that happened. Okay, now I need to just explain to my child, I'm sorry, dad was a little cranky. It's about recognizing that relationship is so crucial. And I think the one thing I observe with parents, I'm not a parent in this life, is I think it's an incredible training around letting go, because all the kids I know in my life, I just can't get over how quickly they grow up. And I'm like, wow, right now you're with this adorable little 2-year-old, and that adorable little 2-year-old in 8 years is going to have morphed into this other being age 10 with some characteristics of the 2-year-old, but a completely different way of thinking and seeing. And you are constantly having to adapt yourself at each stage of that relationship. So to me, parenting is a mastery art.
Beautiful. And any last words of wisdom you want to share before we dive into a meditation?
No, but I would like to say to you what beautiful, bright energy you have. And thank you for doing what you're doing and putting this out into the world, because you are the kind of energy that we all need more of, and more visibly out there in the world. So thank you for being willing to do it visibly. And thank you for not letting the witch hunters get under your skin in a way that would have made you step back. Yeah.
Woohoo! Hugs, man. There. We'll go with hugs. Thank you so much. And to those witch hunters out there, I love you guys too. I love you. And you need hugs just as much.
Absolutely. There's a lot of wounding in there. So yeah.
So thank you, and thank you for your light and bringing it to the world, and everything that you're bringing to the world. This book needed to come out. So thank you, Lee.
Thank you for making my morning with this conversation and inviting me to come and speak with you and everyone who watches your show. Thank you.
Woohoo! All right, do you have time for a brief meditation?
Absolutely. How long would you like it to be?
3 to 5 minutes, would that work?
Perfect. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes for this.
And if you're driving down the road,
to do the same.
You would have to close the eyes afterwards.
Absolutely. Okay, so just take in a few nice, steady breaths. And one more breath. And as you breathe, become aware of this space that exists in your torso where your heart is, your heart chakra, so your chest. Just become aware of the area of your chest that you're now breathing your breath into and down through. And take a moment to feel how luminous that area is inside your body. So you may see the light inside this area of your body. You may feel a heat as we speak and focus on your heart chakra area. But just take a moment to let yourself become aware of the energy of your heart. Now, the brain and the stomach are often areas that we speak about in terms of intelligence and the link between them. But the heart is the place that is a universal entry point for you between those two parts of your body. So think of the heart chakra as a planet inside you. It's not only a unifying planet inside your body, but it connects you to the universe. Love is really another word for life force or life energy. And the love that you often feel, emit, and decide upon starts with the intelligence of your heart. So as you just focus on this area and give it some attention, just thank your heart for all it has done for you. You can say, "Thank you, heart, for loving me and loving others. Thank you, heart, for guiding me and guiding others." And because we live in such a mental, overstimulating world, if you care to join me in this affirmation to stay connected to your heart at busy or more mental times, you can follow my words and say them aloud or aloud in your mind, whichever feels best for you. Dear heart, I will remain aware of your presence at all times. Dear heart, I will remain aware of your presence at all times. Dear heart, when my mind gets busy, I will turn my focus toward you, and the thoughts will start to disappear. Dear heart, when my mind gets busy, I will turn my attention toward you, and the thoughts will disappear. And now you might want to place one or two hands on your heart, the center of your chest, your heart chakra, and just feel the power of that energy and recognize that even if you don't think you are leading or thinking from your heart, it's always there powering everything. But that if you chose to take a few minutes each day to just thank your heart for all it does for you and to focus on it, give it some attention, you would be amazed how much more you will start to live from the heart, be in the heart, and experience more calm. So thank you, heart, for all that you do for me, for my world, and for the world around me. Thank you, heart, for all that you do for me, for my world, and for the world around me. I honor you, and I never forget you are here, driving everything. I honor you, and I never forget you are here, driving everything. And we'll just take a few more deep breaths to close. You feel your heart energy moving through your mind, your crown, your whole body. Feel that centering energy. And when you're ready, you can let it go and open your eyes.
Woohoo! That was brilliant. That was beautiful. I don't even have the words.
It was good for me too, so thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Hart.
Yeah. It's so true that it is the connection point to the universe, this part of our body. Sure, we can be intuitive to the universe, but this is this is the earth of us, the planet Earth of us. So yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lee. This has been phenomenal. I have so greatly enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. So, got to crank it back up for the finish. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get Energy Speaks, and begin living from your heart today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you. What a pleasure. What a treat. Kim was not wrong. I've so loved this. Thank you. So good to meet you.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!